tonight, with new COVID cases and hospitalizations rising, some are pushing to bring back masking rules.
Are masked, so staff is always masked, and then we're just asking that everybody who comes in also wears a mask.
How one Toronto business is creating a space for their customers who are feeling anxious. Plus,
and a hardworking, ambitious, and aspiring international student who was just going on his workshop.
A vigil to remember a 21-year-old international student who was shot dead outside a subway station earlier this week, and to demand justice. Plus,
like, you might not have been to the Philippines, but coming in here, it'll be very close to a vacation there.
How some restaurants in the GTA are marking and celebrating Canada's first ever Filipino Restaurant Month.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening, I'm Farah Morali. Tomorrow marks 3 weeks since Ontario dropped most mask mandates. But as COVID cases surge, there are growing calls for places to revisit masking rules. I spoke with some health experts who are urging people to wear masks in indoor places to help blunt the sixth wave.
So then it's nice and open like this.
Inside Hooked Fish Market, masks are not mandatory, but the shop is piloting an initiative for those still feeling anxious.
So 4 hours out of the whopping, 40-something hours we're open, we are masked. So staff is always masked, and then we're just asking that everybody who comes in also wears a mask.
Kristen Donovan says masking hours were introduced after conversations with concerned clients, some elderly or immunocompromised.
We've had so many customers come in and say to our team, thank you for doing this. It just makes me feel more comfortable.
Public transit is one of the few places here in Ontario where masks are still mandatory. But with hospitalizations now creeping up, health officials are strongly encouraging people to mask up indoors, even where it's not required.
I look at the data and say, well, we should clearly be wearing masks.
Public Health Ontario suggested in a brief the recent rise in new cases and hospitalizations is associated with the lifting of mask mandates. Quebec and PEI have opted to keep mask mandates until the end of the month. And in Ontario, some are pushing to bring them back. The Ottawa District School Board is meeting to consider a motion on just that.
Reintroducing masking in our schools is just a simple right thing to do at this stage of the pandemic, with the cases that we're seeing.
Some experts say it's also time to reconsider what kind of masks we're wearing.
Given how transmissible these new variants are, I think wearing an N95 mask makes sense. I wear an N95 mask in most settings that I go to because those two are no longer difficult to come by.
Back at Hooked, they say masking hours aren't just for the safety of customers, but staff too.
We have a really expensive, highly perishable inventory. So imagine for us, if over half of our team went down, we're sitting on an inventory, we have to close stores.
So for now, masking hours are here to stay. Toronto's downtown core is coming alive in a way we haven't seen in more than 2 years. The city's major sports teams are all up and running at the same time with no pandemic restrictions. They're drawing thousands of people, and it's paying off in a big way for nearby bars and restaurants who rely on those crowds. Greg Ross has more.
Sports, they bring people together.
Natalia Di Carvalho is the manager at the Fox and Fiddle Sports Bar, which is just steps from the Rogers Centre. She says this weekend was their busiest since the start of the pandemic.
This weekend, honestly, it's really felt like back before COVID, just, last year we didn't have that.
Driven to right field.
Not surprisingly, they got a big boost from the Blue Jays' season opening weekend. With no pandemic restrictions in place, the Jays brought in 120,000 fans over 3 days. And Di Carvalho says they were busy before and after each game.
We had security for the first time in a little while just to handle the crowd. We have a host again.
Being able to go out for food and drinks is just part of the game day experience for many Jays fans.
It's like a sense of community, right? You want to hang out with your friends and your family.
It's a great time. I don't think we've got to actually go out and hang out like this in a while.
Some of the fans we spoke to think it's more important than ever to get out and spend.
Because you have to support the local businesses. They've struggled for the last 2 years, and without them, we have no city, right?
And it's not just locals who are out these days.
I'm starting to see a lot of tourists again, which is awesome.
Downtown business owners hope the best is yet to come.
He's coming again. Austin Matthews scores!
Both the Leafs and Raptors are heading to the playoffs.
For Birch. To the rim!
And that should translate into another big boost in business.
During the playoffs for like Leafs and Raptors, we'll actually have people sitting in the restaurant watching.
Warmer weather will also mean more business for local bars and restaurants as they reopen their patios. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
At Nathan Phillips Square, a vigil remembering a 21-year-old international student who was gunned down outside Sherbourne Station. Today, friends and family and classmates of Karthik Vasudev gathered to honor his life.
Can't be portrayed in the words because students, they feel so sad right now, and they are in deep sorrow. And a hardworking, ambitious, and aspiring international student who was just going on his work shift, and that's how I would like each and everyone to remember him.
Vasudev was a marketing student at Seneca College. In an interview with CBC Toronto, his father said Vasudev was on his way to his part-time job when he was shot. Police say it happened Thursday around 5 p.m. just outside of Sherbourne subway station, and that Vasudev died in hospital. His family is looking for answers. Those calls for justice echoed in India.
Justice for Karthik! Justice for Karthik! Justice for Karthik!
Those videos taken from social media. The footage is from India, where people were seen holding candles and marching, calling for justice for Karthik. Well, Toronto police have identified a man who died in a shooting near Moss Park last night. 36-year-old Elijah Eleazar Mahapath of Toronto was found near Dundas and George Street, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to hospital, where he died. It happened shortly before 7 p.m. on Saturday. Police say a gunman approached the victim, then shot him multiple times. The suspect is still at large, and investigators are asking for anyone with information to reach out to Toronto police. And police are also investigating a crash that killed a 29-year-old last night. Witnesses reported seeing the driver was racing another car. Investigators say the driver was ejected from the vehicle. It happened around 7:30 p.m. on Highway 427 near Finch. Paramedics rushed the driver to hospital, where he died. Police are looking to speak to the driver of the second vehicle, which they believe was a white Honda S2000. Well, Torontonians continue to rally in support of Ukraine. Dozens demonstrating at Nathan Phillips Square this afternoon. Many wearing blue and yellow or waving flags to represent the colors of the country. It was organized by the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress as part of weekly demonstrations to denounce the war. Meanwhile, Russian missiles and artillery struck eastern Ukraine today, in one city destroying an airport. It came amid ongoing concerns that a major Russian offensive in the area is imminent. The CBC's Chris Brown reports on how Ukraine is trying to prepare for it while still recovering from Russia's first offensive.
Before Russia's retreat from Ukraine's north, the front line was here on the Irpin River during the battle for Kyiv. Russia failed to capture the capital, and that defeat is giving people a chance to now put their lives back together. This temporary bridge is a beam of light in a dark tunnel, and it's very important for every Ukrainian, says Supervisor Andriy Levchenko. Ukrainian troops destroyed the crossing to halt the Russian advance, but that also trapped desperate civilians who had to climb over the debris to get out. After workers get these cables laid, the internet here will soon be back.
Oh, it's ruined.
Larissa Pasieka never left her home, even when a Russian shell destroyed her banya, or sauna, that's in her backyard. We'll recover quickly because we're hard-working people, she said, if it's peaceful. Much will depend on what happens in the coming days in Ukraine's eastern region known as the Donbass, where another defining battle is taking shape. Russia released this video of what it says is one of its helicopters trying to destroy a Ukrainian convoy. Ukraine did score a big diplomatic win this weekend when Britain's Boris Johnson strolled around downtown Kyiv with President Vladimir Zelensky at his side.
You have a remarkable president.
It was a huge moment, Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs told us in an interview.
And him walking the streets actually gives a better signal than any kind of official statement that no one is afraid of Putin.
She said Western nations realize now that winning on the battlefield is the only way to negotiate with Russia, and she praised Canada for providing anti-tank rockets such as these and $1.5 billion in loans and direct aid.
Communication between our leaders, Prime Minister Trudeau and Zelensky, President Zelensky, is very, let's say, hot, is very active. I mean, I think that he talks to Prime Minister Trudeau even more often than he sees his family.
Ukraine's best trained and battle-hardened troops are in the Donbass, but Russia may have more soldiers. And Ukraine's leadership is saying what's to come could be as awful as some of the big battles of the Second World War. Chris Brown, CBC News, Kyiv.
Now, millions of people have fled Ukraine since the Russian invasion began, and some are trying to come to Canada. But despite new measures meant to expedite immigration, some advocates say the process is still too complicated. Travis Danrash has more.
The exodus continues, families fleeing terror. Helena Vronka was able to get out. Last week, she arrived in Toronto with her 2 children. Her husband still in Ukraine.
Some days I'm crying, some days I'm laughing, but I can compare myself to a hydroplane, so I'm not like feeling that I'm walking the streets. I'm like floating. This is like, pinch me.
The Prime Minister told CNN Canada's doors are open.
We've already taken in over 14,000, and we're continuing to do many, many more.
But there are hurdles. Canada requires applicants to have a mailing address, difficult for many refugees. It also requires biometric information, like fingerprints and photos. Advocates say it's created a bottleneck.
On the biometrics, we're seeing people have long delays, 40, 50 days or more in terms of the processing. So it's clear that their processes need to be improved.
We're exempting biometrics for certain individuals from low-risk cohorts, including youth up to the age of 18, people over the age of 60, as well as those who have a travel history to Canada.
But some say that is not enough as demand grows. As of April 6th, Ottawa had received nearly 120,000 applications for entry. 31,000 have been approved. The government is working to organize charter flights and will provide 2 weeks of temporary hotel accommodation, along with 6 weeks of income support to those arriving.
We are really lucky to be here.
Helena Vronka is praying more will be able to escape, including family left behind.
So far, we are settling here down, and hopefully one day we will be all united.
The RCMP is encouraging Ukrainians arriving here to consider helping with its investigation into allegations of war crimes by Russia. They're also providing assurance that any information disclosed won't impact immigration status. Travis Danrash, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Ontario government says it's investing $75 million to restore passenger rail service to northeastern Ontario. Premier Ford made this pre-election announcement in Timmins today.
It's been a full decade, 10 long years, since the previous government chose to close down the Northlander passenger line. In doing so, they cut Timmins in northeastern Ontario from the rest of the province.
The Northlander train service, which operated from Toronto to Cochrane and northeast of Timmins, was cancelled, as you heard there, by the Liberal government in 2012. Ontario Northland says it has now updated its initial plan in partnership with the Ontario government and Metrolinx. It'll include passenger rail service between Timmins and Toronto, a rail link to Cochrane, and a connection to Polar Bear Express service to Moosonee. The government estimates the possible route could reach an additional 5,300 riders. The leader of the Ontario Greens, Mike Schreiner, was in Waterloo today, speaking to Ontario Green candidates from across the province who are attending a campaign readiness boot camp in preparation for the June election.
The other parties are not up to the job. They offer no measures or half measures that will, at best, only pave over the cracks in the foundation of Ontario.
Earlier this month, the Ontario Green Party unveiled a multi-billion-dollar plan to increase demand and boost production of electric vehicles. Schreiner also spoke about some of the party's priorities ahead of the election, which include tackling the climate crisis, more mental health supports, and a housing affordability strategy. And Sophia Kambalia joins us now with a first look at your weather forecast. Sophia.
It was a really typical April weekend, wasn't it? A little bit of sunshine we had today, a little bit more than yesterday. This is why, though, we were really at the whim of this upper-level trough that was spinning out on top of us. Didn't take a lot to have a little extra convergence to create some of those pesky showers or even that long-lasting hailstorm that many of you posted on social media and talked about on Saturday. But here is proof in the long-range temperature trend that there is warmth on the horizon. It'll be quite nice as well in the short range, but then just a tease as we drop back down to earth with some real unseasonable cold. More on that in the long range. Here is why we have the back and forth, though. The lake water is running really, really cool. This time of year, we at the whim of a really raw east wind, which can be quite unpleasant this time of year. Let's take you day by day for the short range now. Quite the clear overnight period with that east wind. -1, feeling like -5. You'll have some breaks of sunshine for your Monday morning around the freezing mark. We will have sunshine and building warmth throughout Monday. Monday is a story of building warmth, especially as you head further inland where you could see some upper teens, much cooler anywhere along the lake shores, right from Hamilton all the way up to Pickering. Monday is also a story of afternoon and evening rain into the overnight period into the nation's capital region. Coming up, I'll tell you about the balmy warmth and the upper teens expected for everyone on Tuesday.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
See you then.
A Regent Park youth group is making sure people have access to meals during the month of Ramadan. Mayor John Tory visited the group today called Healing as One. They're preparing and delivering fresh halal meals and grocery food kits daily in downtown Toronto throughout April. The group had a chance to speak to the mayor about their programs. They say many residents of Regent Park are calling for funding of community-led initiatives to support families and to address food insecurity. Canada's first ever Filipino Restaurant Month is happening right now, with several restaurants in Toronto taking part. The campaign, launched by the Philippine Consulate General, aims to help support Filipino restaurant owners and get new people trying the cuisine. Talia Ricci visited one of the participating restaurants in Parkdale.
Filipino Month is just to raise awareness of Filipino food and also talk about the different parts of the Philippines and where certain foods come from in the Philippines. So my name is Mark Buenaventura. I'm the chef and owner of Islas Filipino Barbecue.
What excites you when it comes to being a part of Filipino Restaurant Month in Toronto?
Right now it's a very good time because I think people are slowly coming out of this whole pandemic era where they're just at home or having to stay home. And now people want to go out, they want to try new things. So I think this is just causing attention for people to try new restaurants, new places, and try new flavors.
You know, we have a saying in Filipino, if you wish to know somebody and to please somebody, you have to feed him or her the best Filipino foods. That's why we are trying to assist our Filipino-owned restaurants and businesses.
What do you enjoy most about sharing your culture through food?
I'm proud to own a restaurant. I'm glad we were able to find this location in Parkdale. You know, being that Parkdale, a lot of immigrants started in Parkdale, right? So there's a little bit of culture here in Toronto. Like you might not have been to the Philippines, but coming in here, it will be very close to a vacation there, right? Like just having a place where people could try Filipino cuisine.
Well, Sophia is back with us for another look at the forecast the week ahead.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I've seen both of those films too.
Have you?
Fantastic Canadian cinema. Scarborough is amazing. Some of my good friends helped create it as well.
It's on the list.
Turning Red, my kids loved it. What about Loving the Warmth coming up? Yeah, it is on the horizon, folks. Let's take you through this day by day. We talked about the clouds clearing into the overnight, some of the rain that you will experience Monday afternoon, evening, into the overnight period, into the nation's capital region. That's the clearing Tuesday, and wait till you see the sunshine, the temperatures that will come along with it. Hopefully, I'll tell you about the determining factor here. 16, 17, 18 degrees and plenty of sunshine. How does that sound? It'll sound better if you're, I don't know, Hamilton, Niagara, Windsor, and up to cottage country. And this is why. Cool 2 degrees in Lake Ontario. Watch what it does to the temperatures in Toronto compared to what you'll experience around the Bend. Maybe worth the drive out to Hamilton for the 17, 18 degrees as opposed to the 10, 11. It also depends on how much cloud we see from a big system that's going to bring blizzard-like conditions in Manitoba. We'll get the leading edge of the clouds. How early they come determines how much sunshine you get, but still it's the day to beat this upcoming work week. Those clouds are the leading edge of the rainy system that will come in on Wednesday. Scattered showers, not a washout of a day, and then the double digits, though, stick around. For Thursday, it's the 4th consecutive Thursday that's double digits. That's preceded by a rainy day on Wednesday. But who's counting, Farah?
Looking forward to that, Sophia. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Farah Morali. Have a great night.